Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name is Jay Liebguth. I'm your host of What's It Like, and you picked a good one to be a part of today because we've got dancer Julian Adair, dancer, choreographer, book author, mom. What else do we add to that list?
Oh my goodness, stage director, playwright. My business card keeps growing and growing, which is a good thing.
It is a good thing. So, give us the background about dance. Why are you a dancer? That's just your art of choice?
Well, when I was very, very small, I thought the world worked this way. I thought first you learn to crawl, and then you walk, and then you dance, and then you choreograph. And I honestly thought that's how the world worked. And my dear sweet mother said, "Oh, honey, no, but I'll give you dance lessons." And so, God bless her, both my parents were just awesome, and they supported me. They didn't always understand what I was doing or why I was doing it, but they were always there for me. So I danced my whole life, and I just thought, doesn't the whole world see color and movement and texture and design when they hear music? I mean, don't you?
Sometimes. Not near enough, I'm afraid.
I see that. Matter of fact, I purposefully do not turn on the radio in the car so I can have silence, because if I hear music, I'm really working. I'm seeing movement, I'm seeing design, I'm seeing dancers and movement that probably not too many people else would think about.
That's interesting because it's hard for me not to work unless I have music going. So I hear it. I hear it differently. For me, it's
Right.
background. It's
Sure.
not work.
Sure. Yes, it's hard for me to get to the background phase, and I do occasionally play background music, but most of the time it draws me in, and I'm a sucker, and I'm choreographing. So it's
So
a
what did
nonstop.
your dance career look like?
I started, my mom made me wait till I was like 7, which, okay, to a 3-year-old, that's another lifetime away.
It's a whole nother
It's
lifetime.
another lifetime away. And I remember the day when she said, "Oh, I'm going to take you to a dance studio for dance lessons." And I was like over the moon. And I remember dancing and dancing and dancing and having our first performance and leaving the Orpheum Theater going, "What? I have to wait all summer until I get to go back?" And it was like, I didn't want to stop. And so I danced my whole career, and I was finally getting ready to go to college. And, I kept thinking, well, I could do, pre-med or nursing or...
Because there's no money in dance,
So
right?
yeah, exactly. And so, I kept, going, okay, Creighton was right there. And so I signed up for classes and found myself dancing 6 days a week and dancing with their company. And so one thing led to another, as they say, and I, talked to my mom and dad and say, "By the way, that med school thing, yeah, not so much. I hope you're okay with that." And
I
of
hope you
course-
appreciate how much money I'm saving you.
Yes. Oh, you should have led with that. I should have led with that.
It's always a benefit. Lead with a benefit.
Yes. But I think, my sister went into medicine, and, we have really great, discussions. And I'm like, "How was your day?" She's like, "Oh, this trauma came in and really life and death stuff, and I may have headaches, but sometimes the worst thing I have to do is tell someone that their pirouettes are awful and they need to work harder, or there's more effort, or, it's not life and death like other professions."
Yeah,
So.
we're not putting hot tar on roofs in the summertime either.
Yes.
The artist life, it's really not for everybody. I mean, some people need a lot more structure.
Right. Yeah, my husband, in fact, we kind of are the yin and yang to each other. He is a very calm, very mild-mannered, individual, and I'm like running around with my hair on fire. So we balance each other out, but he's one that needs structure. He wants to go to work, have a list of tasks that he needs to complete, be done at 5 o'clock, and go home. Me, I wake up early, I start thinking of ideas, I'm making notes, I'm emailing people, I'm editing music, I'm working on costume design, whatever, and then the day develops and I have a class and a rehearsal, and then I have more classes and more rehearsals, and lots of administrative stuff I could do without, but
Right.
there's not the job that doesn't have the paperwork end at some point. So
Now, I mentioned you were a mom, so you have kids.
I have 2 amazing, beautiful, happy, healthy, talented, full of heart kids. So yeah, I won
Daughters?
two daughters. I won the jackpot on both.
Are they
So
dancing?
they are dancing. Matter of fact, they've been dancing. Well, they've been dancing since in utero, we could say. I actually performed when I was very, very pregnant with one in a piece that was designed quite beautifully, and yeah, they kind of emerged. And from the time they were just weeks old, I had them strapped to me and I'd be teaching, and so they watched the dancers, from the very, very get-go, and as soon as they could, walk and move, they were in classes, and they've been in class ever since. And it's not something that I've, said, you need to dance, if you want to go play soccer or you want to, go play volleyball or do something else, they certainly can. And my husband's a big soccer fan, big. But dance really spoke to them, and so I'm like, well, I will do everything I can to help you. So they dance daily for
So as a mom, and I think you mentioned one of them is getting probably later in high school.
Yes, we have a junior.
Okay, so is the conversation coming up now about
yes.
college?
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, I asked her short list the other day. She said, well, we need to start doing college visits. And I'm like, yes. And a couple of them that came up were one in the Midwest, one on the East Coast, and then London. I'm like, okay, let's start with London. That sounds like a good gig to me. And the tuition is actually less expensive than some of the U.S. schools. So I'm like, okay.
Are you factoring in your flights to
Well,
go visit?
My criteria with my kids for college is you can't go into massive debt over school, and it has to be someplace I want to come visit.
Yeah.
Those are my two criteria. And you can study whatever you want, if dance is their thing, and it obviously is. They are looking at dance schools, so.
But as a parent, aren't you required to mitigate their expectations and keep them from heartbreak?
Oh, no, I think quite the opposite. The world will show them plenty of heartbreak, and, you got to stick your neck out. They say most people in New York are waiting tables and not doing their craft. They're not doing the acting job or the music job or the dance job. But you know what? There's a lot of people who are, and why not? I auditioned and I got into companies, and it was very fulfilling. And I didn't dance as long as I would have liked to, I have to say that. But I did, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. I wouldn't want to go back now at this point in the game and be performing, because it is, injuries and lots of things you're up against, but I would not trade it for anything.
We've experienced so much change in the world, mainly through technology and things like that. Has any of that impacted dance or art?
I think it really has a couple ways. In the old days, I remember booking flights through Kansas City, because I could fly from Omaha, or I could drive from Omaha to Kansas City in 2 hours and 45 minutes and park in satellite parking, catch a plane, and fly to wherever I was going to go to audition. Now it is, okay, make a video, hit send. They still want to see you in person, but so many of our kids have made the audition videos, especially for the summer intensive programs and things like that. And they have a list of what they want to see, and they give it to you, so you knock it off your list and make the video, and you can. So
the investment in travel and auditioning and stuff like that is not quite as great.
Well, it's still always better to be there.
Sure.
But by the same token, the Metro here has so many opportunities. We've had a number of dance companies come through. We had like Harlem was here in the last year or so, and two of the kids that I brought to the auditions got scholarships on the spot. You know what I mean? So it's just like, Omaha has a really amazing theater and arts awareness and arts support that I think most cities this size do not have.
I want to talk about your art, your choreography a little bit. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to express with your art?
Well, I really, it's like a good book. They say, if you're writing a book, create a really good character and let it take you for a ride. I think it's the same. It depends on what I'm working on, whether it's a ballet piece, a modern piece. I do a lot of musical theater. I've done about 150 shows in my career, and it kind of depends on the project. But, the last piece I just did, it was called Crimson Whispers, and it was at the Orpheum in a project called Nebraska in Motion, which celebrated the 150th anniversary of Nebraska. And we were asked to do a piece. And I really let the piece be driven by the music, and I had some amazing, beautiful dancers to work with. And then I worked with the costumer, and we created new costumes. And so, it all depends on where we're at that day. I kind of think of it as a muse. They come visit me, and I kind of let things unfold. And the muse is named Trixie, by the way. Trixie. Yeah, that came by an interesting story. I was lecturing to a class one day about the muse of dance, which is terpsichore. And one of my late coming students comes in and goes, "Trixie? Who's that?" And we all had a good laugh. I'm like, "Oh, Trixie." So that has now become the name of my muse. So,
yeah.
And it's funny because I will be bothered, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this too, at the most inopportune times of like, oh, there's something creative happening and you have to pay attention to it, because if you don't, it will go away forever, and we'll find some other artists to take care of it.
Unfortunately, I think that discipline is something that is a learned behavior, because I
Very
have
much.
experienced that. I'm writing it in my mind, and I don't take the time right then. And that idea, I still have the headline, but the idea is not near as clear, and it does go away. And I think that that's, even at my age, I still have to give it respect and pay attention to it and address it when it's there.
Yes, if you don't pay attention to it when it comes to you, it will either leave completely or leave and come back in a different form that wasn't quite as amazing as when it first hit you. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah. How do you find your way through this? It sounds like that you are very involved in these shows. You mentioned working with the costumer. I assume there's a story to be written, at least for the understanding of the dancers. How is all of that part of your job?
Well, most of it starts with me because I'm chief cook and bottle washer a lot of times, but I have an amazing staff. Whether it's in my studio, I own an academy, or if it's on a production, or I'm working in musical theater. So yes, there are a lot of people involved, and of course, I often say, if you're standing near me, you'll get sucked into my vortex, whether you like it or not. And people are like, "What? I wasn't doing anything." I'm like, "But now you are."
Yeah.
So yes, there's a lot of cogs and twists and moving parts to whatever's happening. But like this piece here, my Nutcracker piece, that started out as, this is our 11th season doing this piece.
Wow.
And it started out with, first we did just some excerpts. And, if you're a dancer, you're exposed to Nutcracker, most of your life. It's the one piece that people will see, even if they're, quote, not ballet fans.
Right.
It's
everybody's seen it. And probably all the dancers have had an opportunity to be in it.
And so it's a piece that, sometimes if you don't ever see another ballet in your whole career, you'll see Nutcracker. And it's a wonderful piece. The thing that has always kind of been nagging me is that there's always parts of it that are left out that I kind of go, no one knows this. No one knows this story behind the story. And I started researching the E.T.A. Hoffman Tales, which is what the Hard Nut, the original story, is about. And there's all sorts of things, left out. And a lot of people will go see a ballet, or they'll go see the symphony, or they'll go see opera, or they'll go see theater. And if they don't like it that first time, they'll write it off, and they'll never see, ballet or opera again. It's not like I went to the movies and I saw a movie I didn't like. You'll still go to the movies,
Sure.
or you'll read a book that you didn't like. You'll read another book.
Yeah.
But the live theater arts sometimes get shafted that way, and it's very, very sad. And I always felt like a lot of people would see Nutcracker and they wouldn't, quote, get it. And so then they wouldn't ever see dance again. And it's very, very sad because dance is such a beautiful, beautiful art form. And so I started poking around and researching, and I'm like, oh, there's all this other stuff behind the story that even, a lot of dancers don't know the story behind the story. So I started gathering some of these tales and took a few liberties, of course. And
artistic license, I believe it's called.
Yes, exactly. Artistic license. I like that. And kind of put together a script, a framework that gives the audience a point of view, and it kind of gets your audience in the loop. And so now they know the story behind the story that entices them a little bit more, and I think allows them to enjoy the other parts of Nutcracker even more so.
So that spun off into the book.
Yes.
And I'll get to the other book, but I want to hear more about this since we're on the subject of the Nutcracker.
Yes, we're in rehearsal right now.
Delightful Secrets of the Nutcracker.
Yes. That just happened. Well, I wrote the script about 12 years ago, and we've been producing it now for the last 10. This is our 11th season. And every year, of course, I tweak it and mess with it. And, sometimes the characters, float in and out and different things happen. And I've added a few characters that don't exist, and a few things that don't actually happen in, quote, a traditional Nutcracker. There are about 500 Nutcracker productions across the country every year. And everyone's unique to...
And they're all seasonal, right? I mean, nobody does that
you
Easter
do it,
time.
Exactly. Although I've seen a few variations done at other times of the year that takes on a completely different twist. But there's Nutcrackers...
Nutcracker meets Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, there was one years ago called the Mad Cracker, which was very interesting. There's every ballet company has their own twist on it. I've never seen one done like we do it, though, no matter where I've been or what I've seen. I've seen some really beautiful productions, but I've never seen one that is multimedia where it mixes theater and dance like we do. Because I've kind of taken it, the show apart, and the party scene, which is traditionally at the beginning, is at the end. And there's a spell that's been cast, which is, the traditional story is, there is a little girl named Clara. She gets a really ugly doll for Christmas from a godfather that I personally would not leave my children alone with. Kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And then she falls asleep, and she goes to this land and dances with this grown-up prince. And,
Interesting ideas.
Yes. I mean, the ballet was, it's a couple hundred years old, so, or not quite a couple hundred years old, but, it's been around for a while, but there was just some things like, why would we do it like that? Why would we do it? And I kept questioning. And so I took things apart, I reassembled the puzzle, and I added some of my own stuff. So there's some frameworks. So you get some of the story behind it. And then you get all this beautiful dancing in the Land of Sweets with, the Sugar Plum Fairy on that beautiful music, Waltz of the Flowers, the snow. I mean, it's just breathtaking. I mean, I've been doing it, for years now. I don't get tired of it.
Yeah.
And
it is a tradition for a lot of people, right? At that time of year.
It really is. And I hear some people going, "Oh no, it's that again." It's just like, yes, it is. And if you don't like it, go do something else.
Yeah.
There's lots of choices, but I love it. And each year we tweak things, we mess with things. So, matter of fact, the book I have here that is in printing as we speak. Will be out here in a few weeks. Some of the things have changed since we went to print with it. It's just like, oh, wait, this year's production is going to be a little bit different. But that's, art to me is never finished. It's only abandoned. So, at some point you have to hand it over to your audience, to your reader, to your critic, to your whoever is on the receiving end of your art, and let them experience it. And maybe they're not going to see the same things you do, and that's way okay with me.
Dig a little deeper on that, because I like what you just said there about art is not just updated, it's a band. I mean, tell me about that. Okay, tell me about the importance of art.
Well, gosh, I did a talk some time ago about the scientific method and the artistic process. They're very much the same. They ask a lot of the same questions. They ask how, they ask what, they ask why, and my very favorite is what if? What if? And so it's crucial to everything we do. I mean, art is, a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I'm not creative." I'm like, "Well, you got dressed today, didn't you?
Right.
You had to pick out that shirt with those shoes." And okay, yes, sure, everyone's creative. Every single person is creative. Now, there's a span of creativity and how you pay attention to it, but everyone is creative, and everything we have, whether it's the cars we drive, the shoes we wear, the buildings we work and play and live in, somebody had to go, what if we designed it like this?
Right.
What if we did this differently? What if we tried it like this? And then there was a scientific part of it where, technology gets involved to assemble it or print it or create it or whatever. But it's very, very, I think, important that everyone realize their creative side and really, really expand on that, because that's where we problem solve. That's really, it doesn't matter what field you're in, whether it's medicine or education or, we have to have creativity.
I've often wondered if we all didn't have one thing that we were assigned when we came here. And if you don't get to try them all, if you don't get to try dance, if you don't get to try the trombone,
Right.
how am I going to realize what my given art gift was unless you try it all? And I think we're seeing a diminishing.
Oh, very much. Well, in some areas I hear, oh, the arts are being cut in the schools, or this is happening. And then other areas people are fighting for it and they're expanding and they're doing amazing things. So yeah, I mean, you got to try stuff, just even take a different route home from work,
Yeah.
see something different. Daydreaming is hugely important. I'm a big TED Talk fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was a TED Talk speaker in 2010 here in Omaha. And so I'm a big fan. And there was just a really great talk on being bored. We are so connected to our phones, to our screens, to our iPads, to our devices, that we really don't have any time for being bored. Everyone is like so busy, and wait, I need to text one more person. I mean, I'm guilty as charged as well.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it talked about what happens to your brain when you let yourself be bored for a little while. And the brain actually does some lighting up and starts problem solving in areas that, you wouldn't normally get if you're constantly on a device.
I do believe that the smartphone is making us a little stupider.
Oh my goodness.
My sense of direction is not the same. My ability to do math in my head is not the same. I kind of cheat on spelling. I just let them figure it out, let the device
yes.
figure it out. So I do believe that we have some switches we need to turn back on.
I believe so too.
And I think that putting down that phone is a lot more freeing than people would imagine.
I think
that.
it's very addictive. I mean,
it is.
We all do it. I mean,
yeah, I've seen people sweat. If you take that phone away from them, they'll sweat. They'll go through physical withdrawal pangs.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And kids we see it too, but I know a lot of older kids that are like that. Tell me about your first book.
My first book, Advice to a Dancer, that was an interesting piece. I wrote the poem that is the text of this in 2010. And it got published in a literary publication called Fine Lines. And I always wanted a visual component to go with it. And I kept working with photographers, and I kept trying to tell them what I wanted and trying to make that happen. And it didn't quite work. And fast forward to a couple of years later, and a bunch of my dancers were needing audition photos for summer intensives, college programs, companies, whatever. And so we had this intense audition season. And one thing that they need is a headshot, and then they need an arabesque shot. And so parents would come and say...
Is that something airborne? Is that...
It is. Let me see if I have an arabesque in here. I don't think I have an arabesque in... Oh, it's this. Right? That's the arabesque shot right there.
All right.
Okay, so we would have people come in and go, oh, I'll just quickly snap a picture of my kid and send it off to this college.
I have a phone.
Yeah, and we would work. And the difference between getting the audition or getting the position or getting the, getting in is... a microsecond of alignment here or there. And we actually tested it. I showed an artistic director 2 shots of the same person. And I said, would you hire this person versus this person? And it's like, oh, I would never hire that person. Their arabesque is awful. And yet it was the same person. It's, so
yeah.
they're important. They're very important. And it's, if you don't understand the timing And so I was really frustrated. And the dancers, of course, having to strike this over and over and over, were getting sore. And I was just like, okay, fine. I will go out. I will bite the bullet. I will buy the really good camera, and I will just do it myself. And so I got the camera and got through audition season, and kids were getting in places, and it was great. And I went, I have this camera here, this really amazing camera that I spent a fortune on. And hey, will you come out and stand by this tree and do this, or and so I was always yanking people out of the studio between classes or between rehearsals or whatever, and saying, hey, would you come do this with me? And all of a sudden I had this collection of photos, and one thing led to another. I started having gallery showings, so I've had about probably 8 or 10 now in the last few years. And so then I went, wait, I have all these photos. Why don't I put them together with this piece? And so, as they say, one thing led to another, and this book came out.
You were a creative problem solver. I
Yes.
see that. I hear that from your stories. So fast forward for me a few years into the future, and the kids are grown. The kids are done with college, and they're on their own. What are you going to be doing?
Oh gosh. Well, what do they say? Who was it? I just read something on social media recently of your daydreams are your future, or a flash of your future, I guess they said, or something. I don't know. I've always been intrigued, and now I'm going to say this out loud and on film here. I've always been intrigued by film. Film to me is very much choreography. And I don't know if it's, again, like with that music thing. When I hear music, I see texture and shape and design and people moving. But with film, it's very much choreography. It's all composition. And I think that's what somebody said to me, too, when I was working on this book. They said, because I'm not great with the camera, okay? I know enough to get what I need out of it, but there's a whole lot more I need to learn, which everyone does need to keep learning. They say you're either growing or you're dead. But my gift with photography is I understand composition. I understand where to put the dancer in the space. I know how to talk to the dancer. We have a language. I can, speak to them and say, hey, can you move this direction, or, more shoulder, or move upstage, or whatever. And they understand. We have a language that, the rest of the non-dancing world doesn't necessarily have as much.
Yeah. Julian Adair, thank you so much for joining us on What's It Like. Continued success to you, and
thank you so much.
Can't wait to see your next production.
Thank you.